everyone, so today I thought I would talk to you about how I use my Instax Mini 90 or Neoclassic. I've had Instax cameras for I think about close to 4 years now, and I've been a fanatic since day one. I've had two different Instax cameras. I've had the Mini 7S, which I'll talk about briefly, but my true love is my Instax Mini 90, which I got just under 2 years ago and I love so much. If you're wondering about the colour, mine is a custom colour that I got when in Singapore, and I'll link the website that sells these down below. I got mine in person in the actual shop. I saved up for it because it was more expensive than the original, but it's well worth it because I love pink and I use it all the time. I often get asked for advice on taking photos with instant cameras by people I know in real life because they know that I've been really into it for years now. I Instagram a lot of photos. I'll have my Instagram link down below. I Instagram a lot of photos to do with Instax and have since the very beginning. I also store all of my photos. I don't stick them up anywhere, or I rarely give them to people. I'm a little obsessive about that. And I'll show that as well. I have how I store them. I store them in a particular album, and that's also available from the same website. So the first benefit really of, I'm sorry I have the strap on this, the first benefit I think of the Neoclassic or Mini 90 as opposed to the camera I had beforehand is that this camera has so many settings. If you see the back of it, I'll just switch it on. It has so many settings along the back, and it's so good compared to the camera that I used beforehand. I still do love my Mini 7S because I like how manual it is, but what's different, a lot of people have the 8, and what's different between the 7S and the 8 is that 7S is a bit older, so it doesn't automatically adjust to the brightness that's outside, so you really have control of that, and that was pretty difficult to learn. But I got so used to it that even now with digital cameras and with this, I feel like I need to be doing something, but it's automatic. So this is the Mini 7S. It's pretty chunky. I have mine washi taped, but it's a pretty chunky camera. To switch it on, you have to pull it out like that, whereas the other one has a switch, and on top is where it's kind of dusty. On top you would switch this along to choose your setting, and it had a basic guide on the back, but is that going to focus? But that wasn't always helpful. It wasn't always true, and I would end up with very overexposed or underexposed photos. So hopefully as I talk about these things I'll be able to insert a photo here or insert a clip or something to show you the photos. I upload almost all of my photos for the last maybe year or so onto a Tumblr, which I'll have linked down below. My Instax diary.tumblr.com I believe it is. I can't quite remember. But I scan all of them from the scanner I have at home, and I crop them and upload them. I just like having it as like a library of all my photos, and it's a really good way to send them around to people, and people can Instagram them themselves if they want to, or put them on Facebook, because generally the photos aren't of me, they're of my friends and other people. So the first setting I'll talk about on how I use this is the flash setting. So the flash setting was not really a thing on my camera, and I don't believe it is on the 8, I'm not too familiar with it, but on the Mini 90 you can have your regular flash, you can have the no red eye flash, or you can choose no flash, which sounds amazing, but having no flash, I'll try and put a photo in here, gives, if you're looking for that effect, it's great, but it's like very grey, slightly blurry. I have experimented with it a few times, but it's not the best. It's good if you're trying to take a photo of like of wildlife or something, which is what I've generally used it for, but other than that it's not the best. Maybe if you're trying to take a photo in a mirror, but I just wouldn't suggest that either way. So another thing that's on this camera that I believe is on the 8 is the lighten and darken settings. So there's lighten plus and darken. I don't believe there's a darken plus, but it basically brightens your photos if you want that slightly overexposed look, because you won't get that accidentally with this camera unless it's extremely bright or you've really bright light shining at you. You won't get that overexposed look unless you put it on lighten or lighten plus, and even at that it's at a controlled rate, so it won't be such a problem as it was for me. If I put it on the wrong setting, I just end up with a white photo with like a few black dots or something, which isn't the best. So then darken as well. If it's super bright outside, you can put on darken and you won't get that super overexposed look. You will be able to see people's facial features, which is kind of important if you're taking photos of people. But once you get control of those things, you can really experiment with them and get the look that you want from your photos. Another feature of the Mini 90 is the timer. So I've had a few problems with the timer, and I'll try and put in the two photos here if I can, or put them in as a clip, but the timer on this slightly confused me multiple times. I've tried to put on the timer and say, oh yeah, I'll take a group photo, it's great, and it's worked out before, but it looks like it says double timer, which is like, oh, double time, that's what we need so we can get everyone into place. It's not. I think it's 10 seconds, takes a photo, 3 seconds or 5 seconds, takes another photo. So it's always a cute group photo and then it's like sky or ground from picking up the camera afterwards. It's happened more than once and it's pretty annoying, but maybe I'll remember eventually. That's something to just watch out for, but it is a really good setting on the instant camera because it's manual. With manual cameras you don't usually get things like that, and you don't get, like, the photographer will never be in the photo. That's what it was with the 7S. I'd always be like, can I be in this photo? Will you take it? And then people get confused. That's another thing to watch out for with these cameras. I know film is expensive. I'll give some tips on where to find cheap film at the end of this video, or maybe in another video. If you have any other, like, queries or questions, just put them in the comments below, or you can put an anonymous ask on my Tumblr if you'd prefer that, on my Instax diary Tumblr, and I'll try and answer them as quickly as I can. But I do have some tips on trying to find cheap film, and just generally that I probably won't be able to put into this video. The three last things I've kind of left are my favourite features of this camera. I love all of it. Since it was a huge step up from my previous camera, it was great to, I had kind of mastered the basics, so then I was able to experiment a lot, and I do take a lot of Instax photos. I have 4 or 5 albums full of photos, but there are the landscape mode and the close-up mode and bulb mode. So for close-up mode is obviously for close-up photos, and that's been really amazing for me when I've travelled, and I was in Singapore and I was in the orchid garden. It's so good to get close-up shots of like flowers and orchids, and it's so pretty, and it really brings out the colour as well. So that's a really great feature, as well as the landscape mode feature, which again is great if you're out walking or something, or you're like by the coast and you want to get a really crisp photo that you know just looks so good on film, but a lot of the time will end up blurry otherwise. The landscape mode on this camera I feel is fantastic. Both of those are just so good. It's close to a digital camera, and it's so nice to have it on film. You do still get that film effect. Bulb mode is just my favourite thing on this camera, because with a normal Instax, if you don't know this, you cannot photograph lights. If you try and photograph a Christmas tree, maybe I'll have photos of these, I think I have some failed ones, Christmas trees, like beautifully lit cities or streets or something like that, it's gonna turn out ugly because you won't be able to see the light at all. However, with bulb mode, it's giving it more, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure. So it's a longer exposure. So because it's a film camera, you just hold down the button. And it basically, if you know how that works, it's just letting more light in. Because with film, it's just one shot and you're done, pretty much. But this, you can lengthen the exposure and it is amazing. You can get gorgeous photos. I love bulb mode so much, and I have loads of photos. I'll try and put those in as well. I have loads of photos that I've taken with bulb mode that are just turned out amazing. Like I was, you know when you're like, did I take that photo? But of cities especially, and I'm trying to think of, I have a really nice, one of my favourite ones is in Chinatown in Singapore, and it was taken with bulb mode, though you do preferably need to rest it on something because you will move slightly and that will blur the photo. The one that was taken in Chinatown, it is blurry, but I like the effect of it. I have one of the Singapore skyline of all the, like, if you've been to Singapore, you know a lot of the photograph spots are like all in one big row, like as if you took a panorama. So I took that photo leaning it on the side of a bridge, and that one turned out really well as well. But bulb mode is just an amazing feature of this camera, and that's why I would actually highly suggest this camera for so many people. I think the price has gone down since I got it, so that's really good. So two other features on this camera that I rarely use are like children mode or kids mode, and what's the other one? Party mode. So party mode I think I have used a few times, and it gives a really nice film effect, almost as if you took it on a disposable camera. That's what it kind of reminds me of, almost like a warmer tone, and it does light the whole background. I think kids mode is also sports mode, and I've tried to use that a few times, but given that film is usually pretty fast, like exposure, I don't really see the difference, to be honest. I've used it taking a photo of my dog, because, you know, it's just like fast, but I don't really think it made that much of a difference. But I still do think the camera's worth it because of all the other features are so good. Tip for switching between modes, like party mode, bulb mode. Oh, double exposure actually is another thing. Double exposure is when you can pretty much layer two photos on top of each other, and it can give a really cool effect. I have like tried it out a few times. I've never really gotten an effect that I really like. I think I have one or two that I could probably show, but there's been nothing that I've been like really amazed by. I know some people can do really cool things with double exposure, and you can look for some help with that online, especially maybe on Pinterest. I think I saw something about it before, but where you can do like half and half photos, which is I think what I attempted, but not something I'm very good at, but I do like the look of it, so just try that out. I think, as I just tried to say, switching between modes like bulb mode and double exposure, kids, party mode, there is another way to do it other than just pressing the mode button again and again, and that's actually to like twist the front section of the camera like this. I don't really see that it's that useful. You know, when you're taking photos, they're generally a bit more planned because film is expensive, so you're not really going like landscape photo, quick, bulb mode. You know, there's not a big purpose in it, but it is still a cute feature. And the camera is very pretty, which you have to admit. Size comparison to the 7, it's pretty, you can see how much thinner it is. It's just flatter, it's much easier to transport. I also don't have a strap for my 7S, so you can imagine the size of bag I had to carry around, and I used to bring this everywhere with me. I've always taken a lot of photos on this. But this is so much easier to transport, and I have a little bag that I put it in just to keep it safe. Because it's custom, the paint has chipped a little bit, and that annoys me, but what can you do? At least it's still pink. So these are the albums that I use to store my photos. I get these from the same website, as I said before, that I got my camera on and where I get most of my film. This was the first type I got. I have 4 of these, I think, 4 or 5. And I'm not sure how many photos they hold. I think it's about 60 or 70. These are some really old photos that I have in here. But it's still like in the early days of having my camera. Yeah, this is just the second album I had used. It's a cute photo on the front though. I like to store mine in albums rather than on a wall or something, just because it's something I'm a bit obsessive about. I really like to keep them all in one place, and I freak out if I lose one. I don't know why, but I just really like to keep them. I think it's because they're printed and there's only one copy of them. That's probably why I started scanning them in the first place, is to make sure I had a second copy of them, especially ones that turned out really well. I didn't want to lose them and then just think about the beautiful photo that I've lost forever. This is a slightly more recent one, still pretty old album, from 2014. This is a slot for the first photo of like the album or whatever, or your favourite photo, but because of how the things are numbered and I had however many albums I had, I thought it was easier to just put something in here and then keep the even numbers, because again, I like to have even numbers in these. So this is 2014, and so the first one I'll just show you is, find some cuter photos. These are some photos from when I was in a dance summer intensive or summer school, and I used rainbow film, and I'm really glad I did, because it actually went with a lot of things. Like my friend used like rainbow bedding, so it really matched the theme of everything, and like the photos are really cute. I love the rainbow film. But as you can see from this album, it's like 2 like that, so you'd hold the album like that, but really you'd be like this for the most part when you're flicking through. So I like these, but with this album, which is much thinner, the photos are different. they're all like this, and it actually holds a lot more photos as well. These are photos from when I was in Dubai and Singapore. This is that's the date that I bought my neoclassic. I took a photo of it with my 7S and I put it in here, and that's basically when I switched over to using it. You can see, I'll try and insert these bigger, but you can, hopefully this is in focus. Oh gosh. You can see how I use the close-up setting in some of them and the landscape setting in that one, which is another one of my favourite photos. But I love storing them in these albums. I particularly like these ones. They're not too expensive, especially if you really want to keep them safe, so I'd really suggest these. So I think that's it for this video. If you have any other questions about anything Instax related, you can comment below or put them on my Tumblr. I'll see them pretty quickly there, and I'll try and answer them as fast as I can. I'll have my Tumblr link down below, and that's it for this video. Bye.